Welcome to the Chaos Sector. Remember the last episode where we presented the possibility that one of the so-called former FBI agents could have been the female that obtained the Linda Lane surveillance from the landlord? Now this is just bonkers. Tracy Walder and Jennifer Coffendigger, or whatever the hell her fake name is, you all remember that? Well, boy, I tell you, the back room is the back room for a reason, because there is literal insanity back there. We just so happened to check, and it was absolutely madness. Let's just dig into it. Nick Too Bad For You is back here spewing nonsense. The back room is our nickname for comments that essentially need to be evaluated by the content creator, because that's where all the trolling occurs. It's a madhouse back there. Now, please pay attention to this conversation between Tracy Walder and Nick Too Bad For You. They're having a good old conversation about shutting the chaos down. We'll scroll through the conversation slowly to let you guys read it all. Nick Too Bad For You. Who exactly are you? Because you are slithering around in the back room and you have absolutely no idea about the chaos sector. Mentioning how we accuse the kids of murder in the Kenneka Jenkins case? Oh, you pay close attention to what we say, don't you? In attempts to use something against us? You're hopeless, desperate, and I would even say you're nervous. You're completely out of your depths, but we know who sent you over to the chaos. It's fine. But for the alleged former FBI agent, Tracy Walder? The wording of her post seemed artificial. It's like someone pretending to be that person. Never once in those posts did she ever mention covering the case in which she is so-called defending herself against a crime for. You understand? Like she would say, quote, "The Idaho murders touched everyone, and it's unprofessional and unsophisticated for you to go around accusing people of committing crimes. I've worked hard in my profession, and I don't appreciate you accusing me of any wrongdoing. You should be held accountable for this, and if you do not take that content down, I will be contacting the YouTube staff about having your video removed. And if you persist to make content about me, I will seek legal action." Unquote. See, it doesn't sound convincing. Now here's the kicker. If it is the former FBI and CIA agent, then this means someone notified her that the chaos mentioned her in our video. Pick your poison here. Either it's a fake bot channel, or it's actually the former FBI agent who someone within the true crime community, or at least is watching the content of the chaos, went and notified her about it. You see? That only justifies our theory that there are DC agents crawling throughout the true crime community in direct contact with law enforcement, the federal government, and have the power of the submit button to shut channels down that make them shake in their little boots. Or Walder herself is snooping around watching the content in the true crime community about the case, in secret. No identity of the person we know as Tracy Walder on her YouTube channel. Surely someone who is a public figure would have something that identifies her as the same former FBI and CIA agent. And it doesn't mean it would have to be identified as such, just content in general, right? I guess she's living up to her CIA spying days then, right? So it makes things worse if it actually is Tracy Walder, because she would be interviewed by various mainstream media networks about the Idaho murders, but wouldn't have anything on her YouTube channel providing the same type of analysis about the Idaho murders. Well, either she's snooping around, or it's not a real person. I'm going to suggest it's not a real person. It's a bot account that someone created. If not, then it actually causes more concern due to the covert behavior of the former FBI and CIA agent. There's no need to snoop around if you're not employed by the federal government to carry out those covert operations. Share your thoughts with the true crime community, because you haven't up until this point. There is no content on your channel. If you're here, then that means either someone notified you, or you were always here, hiding in the shadows. And see, that's exactly what we're talking about. That covert behavior is the same covert behavior of the very female who obtained the surveillance from the landlord. We've been saying this all along, and now you're seeing it right before you. Nick Too Bad For You apparently has been around since YouTube damn near started. DC agents didn't just come around, they've always been here because there have always been those who expose the opposition. So you're just an older DC agent. Those are the worst, because they should have come around by now. Check the channel, and there is absolutely nothing about truth, exposing truth, true crime, conspiracies, politics, society, nothing. A fun time, a bunch of gaming. Now, how did you stumble across the chaos addressing true crime investigating? If this has become an interest of yours, surely you would have something relevant to that interest. Nothing exists about true crime on their channel, but they're running around leaving comments on channels about investigations. Classic DC agent behavior. And this gamer is urging someone to file a lawsuit and even fight to have the channel shut down? Don't you have some gaming content to upload? I mean, really, a gamer is too busy trying to beat the final stage on some RPG or online playing the latest Call of Duty. Why is a gamer so hardwired in taking the chaos down? We all know why. Even though we've exposed many impersonators, we've never called for their channels to be taken down or secretly report their content to be removed. The only people who do that are in fact DC agents. It's not about the subject matter. When someone doesn't like what you're saying, they will work hard to silence you. You wanted your 10 seconds of recognition. Oh, trust you'll get it from the chaos. We won't block you. We won't report your channel. We will simply expose you in a video. That's how you silence the nonsense. Now here's the thing. It's a theory, based on the information we obtained. The female stated that the landlord was, quote, scammed out of the Linda Lane surveillance. From a female. Common sense, of course. No random female is capable of, quote, scamming the landlord out of that surveillance footage. It had to be someone with credibility, someone with certification verification, someone who to the landlord was worthy, who deserved it, who deserved the right to that access of that footage. Who would this list of people be, you ask? Law enforcement, federal government agencies, and private investigators. Not even the media would be able to obtain that surveillance because it would have to be approved by those aforementioned sources first. We just broke that down in the previous episode, and we broke that down in a previous episode before that. So, putting 2 and 2 together here, a female obtained the surveillance from the landlord. We just presented 2 former FBI agents that came to mind first. Okay. If the channel gets shut down, which I'm calling a bluff, but if it does get shut down, the chaos is too distinct of a channel, so our supporters will find us again. Trust me. By the way, we've never had a channel shut down. There has been only one Chaos Sector channel, and with all the so-called slandering and accusations of murder you claim we spew out, apparently YouTube doesn't see it as slander. Oh, nobody has taken the initiative, you say? Cut the crap. The same criticism you have, we've received it far more than this and even more egregious. So, why the channel hasn't been shut down, sir? Because there is a disclaimer we present where we point out that our analysis is based on information and also evidence, which we present theories to our audience about in regards to that information and evidence. A theory is not slander, something you don't understand. Perhaps, it's possible, it's logical, are all terms we make it a point to establish in our analysis, because it's a, wait for it, theory. Not only that, it's a deductive theory, meaning we didn't come out the gate presenting the theory a former female FBI agent was the one who obtained that surveillance. This came through breaking down the information provided to us, and you get the point. And for the record, the only content that had been removed was about the plandemic. Even the so-called running around and accusing kids of murder in the Kenneka Jenkins case, none of the content was removed by YouTube. Yes, that's right, none of it. And you want to know why we took all of that content down, Mr. Nick Too Bad For You? You're so intrigued as to why it was taken down? Because of the anger in investigating that case and coming to the conclusion Kenneka was murdered and left in a fucking freezer. Our chaos meter had tilted over early in that case. You haven't seen the chaos like that, and it's best to not poke at that. You know what? Hear from someone who had a first-hand experience in that case, since you mentioned it.
I got to talk about something important, and it was because a comment someone had made to me, guys. There was, if you remember, I did a video. There was some guy named Chaos Sector, okay? Now, what I'm starting to find is that people were saying that was me. I will say this. Number one, he spoke proper. He typed proper. I understand that. I spoke on him before a lot of people even recognized him. I understand that too. Me and him were not the same person, obviously. So I'm publicly telling you we weren't the same, okay? There is something going on with Kenneka Jenkins vloggers. There's 2 others I had mentioned. Brad Farhall, I spoke on him. The other one, We Trust TV, okay, they're still going strong, okay? They still have a strong movement. These people are going strong. But there's something going on with Kenneka Jenkins vloggers. And I can't verbatim say exactly what it is yet. I did see some mistakes they made during the case. And I say that because of they didn't question it. They were accusing people. So they started getting people and accusing them of doing certain things. The people you still see around, they're good. They question like we do. No, I read where he blatantly, he called out someone and he told them, you committed this heinous crime. I don't even want to touch it, because he didn't just call them out. He started chasing them as doing it in his narrative. He literally started putting, this is why I know you did it. When you get to that territory, it becomes less of questioning and wondering what's going on. Asking a person a question is different. He wasn't asking a question. He put their photo up and he said you did it. Now, it's a little different than them questioning the friends on photos the friends released. That's different. They made it public. You're asking, what is this about? Why are you doing this? Why does that look edited? That's different. He was mentioning people that weren't even mentioned. Like, I mean, you never even heard their name. And I've seen it all to the point where I'm not going to tell you I don't understand why he did it, what he was saying. I fully get it. But the level of proof, it was shaky.
Now, what he didn't point out here is that we didn't start off in that investigation so-called chasing those specific individuals. No investigation starts off that way. Through examining information provided, examining statements, examining everything in that case, we came to the conclusion that those specific individuals were involved and perhaps even responsible for Kenneka's death. The same with the Idaho murders case. You come to a base theory, and throughout that process, things start to fall in place based on the information and evidence obtained. For example, Mr. Nick, too bad for you. Pay attention. Kenneka's peers lied about the departure from the room. Remember this like it was yesterday, my friends. Irene claimed that Shemaya, specifically, came back into the room for Kenneka's phone, which was claimed to be hooked up to the Bluetooth, playing the party's music. Irene asked Shemaya if they were leaving, and she said yes. Okay, now that's Irene's statements. Shemaya also stated that Kenneka specifically told her, yes, specifically her, to go back and get her phone. Shemaya even stated she was the last one to walk out, so Kenneka just told her to get the phone. Now you have two people who have the same accounts. Oh, but we already knew they were lying. But here's the proof. Monifa claims both her and Shemaya went back for Kenneka's phone, which took approximately 15 minutes. And then when they came back out the room, Kenneka was gone. Number 1. It takes 15 seconds to unpair a phone from a device. I mean, that's the first obvious lie. The second is Monifa didn't go back into the room with Shemaya for Kenneka's phone. She claimed she thought Kenneka was behind her, coming back into the room. And when she realized Kenneka was not in the room, well, this would be when both went back to the hall. Yeah, that time frame of assuming Kenneka was behind her, then realizing she wasn't in the room, was about 15 minutes according to Monifa. Just flat-out fuckery. But we dug even deeper into that scenario. All of them were lying about that departure. Monifa claims of returning to the room with Shemaya for 15 minutes justifies the time frame that Kenneka had somehow disappeared. That 15 minutes is her failed attempt at an alibi. It doesn't take two people to get Kenneka's phone, and it definitely doesn't take 15 minutes to unpair it from the Bluetooth. And also, if they're leaving, surely they would tell Irene, who hosted the party, they're leaving before they physically leave the room. They tell her they're leaving. Kenneka is physically right there to unpair her phone, and they leave. Anywho. Now at this very moment, would you agree that the peers were lying? If you agree, then you do realize that the peers or either with Kenneka and lied about the departure, or she was taken out of that room by males, yet the peers essentially were still trailing them and still lied about the departure. Either way, the peers were involved because the path consists of her being escorted. Now, where does this lead you in an investigation? It leads you to questioning, why would Kenneka's peers allow this to happen to her? As for the narrative of Kenneka simply drunk and stumbling through the halls aimlessly, there is no way Kenneka would get plastered like that, when for one, she is responsible for the vehicle they arrived at the party in, which was her mother's. And second, she was the only one with a driver's license. And third, if anyone remembers, the text messages indicated Kenneka was actually ready to leave the party around. Let's see if the memory is still there. I believe it was around 1 a.m. she sent a text to one of her peers about leaving. So at that point, she would not keep drinking. So through our investigation, Kenneka was drugged, speculations of even being sexually assaulted at the party, while others watched, and was escorted out of the room soon after. Now keep in mind, these so-called kids are not kids. That was the same thing a lot of people said about them. Oh, those kids had nothing to do with it. Oh, those were kids just partying. No, those were young adults who were involved with criminal activity, and clearly individuals had it out for Kenneka. Yeah, they would depict them as kids based on age. But when you use the term kids in context of decisions made involving someone's death, you don't attribute that term to deciding to carry out a plot against another. And would they be so bold to do this knowing they would have to eventually confront her family about it? Unless, we broke all of that down, and this is what this individual is addressing. The chaos, not holding back, not sugarcoating the truth. But how did the conspirators get away with escorting her through those halls without anyone noticing anything? And why did they take her to that kosher kitchen? We broke it all down. Let's go back over it. 2 people at the party had allegedly been responsible for drugging Kenneka, and their father was a supervisor of the construction crew contracted to work on the kosher kitchen. Meaning, if you haven't put it together, this individual was there that night. And even through our visual examination of the party footage, he was also at the party. Through visual examination of the edited footage, he is spotted in frames escorting Kenneka in the lower level area, near the stairs. Editing was the key to disguise the truth, but with truth, you can't hide it completely. There was so much going on. Someone forged a back page ad of Kenneka, basically making her an escort. So males at that party, even older males, were specifically there for that reason. She was basically sold as an escort by conspirators and was completely oblivious to what was going on. But based on our analysis, Kenneka started to feel uncomfortable at the party as more suspicious and dangerous individuals entered that room. The conspirators noticed her nervous vibe, and they knew they had to take action before she left. And we're not going to break that down again. It's about putting the pieces together and coming to the most logical conclusion. But let's continue.
Because it's not something solid, whereas someone acts a certain way for a certain outcome, or someone did something behind the scenes, as I had done, and publicly violating. It wasn't like that. It was someone who literally was in a position where you and I would look at them and we'd say, okay, this person's genuine. He put out some crazy stuff. The one night he made me sit up and it shook me because of what he was saying. And, I've been doing this case on and off of cases. What he was saying shook me to the point where I was like, dog, I was like, what? To get to his conclusion, he had to have more knowledge than he was even putting out. There's no way he would have been able to say what he said and explained it that way if he did not know exactly what was happening.
That's not accurate, though. We just explained it. Everything fell into place. If an affidavit claims that a surviving housemate didn't hear any screaming, did not witness any violence, wasn't aware of any danger, yet gave a detailed description of someone exiting the home, that raises the first red flag in your investigative analysis. You would come to the conclusion that this can't be the setting in the home based on, common sense. And things are immediately put in the suspicious category of Dylan's accounts of that night. Knowing this, you start to peel back that deception, and the truth, which is hidden within that deception, gradually or even rapidly start to come out. At that point, you start to dig deeper into that scenario using the common knowledge of human behavior, human reactions, instincts, etc. We know there was screaming, yelling, hysteria all throughout that house. So this puts the surviving housemate in a position of being aware of a danger. If this puts her in a position of being aware of the danger, now the next question is, what position does she hold in that scenario? Because the fear factor exists, but there is the human element at play here. So the next question would be, why didn't she call for help? Okay, she was so scared she didn't know what to do. Yet, based on the affidavit, she locked herself in her bedroom and went to sleep. Now, obviously, this can't be true based on knowing she was aware of the danger and the attacks on her housemates. So if she didn't go back to sleep, then what was she doing during the attacks after the murders had occurred and even within the time frame of the wee hours of the night until those peers came to the home? And due to many keeping the pressure and focus on this specific setting in the home, guess what was released as a form of damage control? A report that Dylan actually heard screaming and just thought it was partying. They quoted her, so apparently Dylan mentioned this, right? The article claims that Dylan told the housemates to quiet down as she was trying to go to sleep. That's interaction with the housemates, right? This information was provided by a private investigator who spoke to Dylan, and the individual she allegedly spotted leaving the home was a, quote, partygoer. Now, this was in an article, and surely they wouldn't claim Dylan had that interaction and heard screaming when that never happened, right? It was because there was no possible way that she wasn't aware of the danger. And even more damage control from the mainstream media, reporting that Bethany and Dylan were texting each other during the attacks. None of this was in either affidavit, none of this was initially reported when collecting all of the evidence. It only came about when people started to poke holes in the lone killer narrative against Kohberger. If that didn't exist, meaning everyone believed Kohberger was the killer, there wouldn't have been those claims about the housemates. It's simple as that, investigating 101. That is a foundation to a theory. Apply this same investigative formula to the Kenneka Jenkins case and come to a similar conclusion. So breaking it down may seem like you're a, quote, insider who knows exactly what happened, but it's basic investigative work.
He visually, so if Chaos Sector, if we're speaking about him, he was the mental one. He got your mind thinking, right? Brad Farhall got your eyes in the mix, where you're like, what? Like, am I seeing what he's showing me? Because when he'd show it, I'm like, what? The danger with these two. And remember, I personally told them the one way they'd survive doing the media and content they did. See, when I speak, I don't think people hear me all the time. I told him, genuinely, in order for you two to be strong, you all need to come together. Okay? I told them this. I mentioned her name. Go rewatch the videos. I told them, you all need to come together. If all of the Kenneka Jenkins people came together, it would have been bad. For I don't know who, but that would have been bad. They each had a separate piece that needed to be placed. But because they were so hard on pushing the narrative of the outside person who was not mentioned, they destroyed that image. They messed up that integrity.
Respectfully disagree here. That's not where the integrity of the J4K was compromised. It was due to, well, the same problem in the Idaho murders case. No community, either it be the J4K or any other type of true crime community, it can't uphold integrity if there is a huge percentage of individuals using it for personal gain. How many people ask for donations? How many people literally monetize their channels once they start to dive into true crime investigating? That is what compromises the integrity of a collective effort for justice, because they don't just do that for their personal gain, they are also executing, you guessed it, damage control. This network of DC agents have more power than many know. I mean, we're seeing it right now. You have people in the back room plotting to get the Chaos channel shut down, but has never posted a comment such as this on any episode. The mainstream media already has that job, and when you have individuals running around doing the same thing, a true crime community essentially floats around in an ineffective fog, because the mainstream media will never acknowledge any investigative work you would present. In the Idaho murders case, many have compiled all the information, the evidence, and even speculation, and came to a certain theory that is worth a discussion in the mainstream media's coverage. After all, it's just a theory, right? Yet they never acknowledged it. But notice how they acknowledged the theory that Kaylee was being stalked? Oh, they ran with that? They would have gotten that information from hearsay, not the family. Even Moscow PD had a press conference addressing the element of one of the victims being stalked. So they chose certain theories, speculations, or information to address, because it keeps everything within the scope of, well, the narrative they pushed. Anything contrary to the lone killer being Kohberger, it's immediately disregarded. Again, the mainstream media focused on Maddie telling Adam everything, played that segment of the audio, yet cunningly, or maliciously, to be honest, left out Jack warning the girls about the issue. Damage, fucking control. In the Kenneka Jenkins case, The mainstream media depicted her as just getting drunk and stumbling into a freezer. It was ruled a, quote, accident, and those in the true crime community did it as well. Gray Hughes echoed this so-called drunk stumbling into the freezer by running around trying to debunk every theory that suggests she was being escorted. That was his theory from the beginning. He never questioned her peers. He never questioned if it was possible she was murdered. But when he appeared on streams with those who did believe there was foul play, he tried to, quote, blend in and stay neutral. We challenged Gray Hughes, and he definitely didn't want the smoke because he couldn't debunk anything from the chaos. More reasons for our anger in that case, which is starting to happen in the Idaho murders case due to the same dynamic. The point, the lurking element within the true crime community, has a greater impact due to not knowing who is genuine and who isn't. Due to this, you have to keep an eye on others because the purpose of a DC agent is to destroy what you are fighting for. Look at what we've addressed in the last month or so. It's about a specific person, right? But it's not drama. It's the very integrity that was questioned. A community cannot survive if it has deception, because that deception manipulates, and that manipulation is influence, and that influence leads to someone or a group of individuals perceiving something or someone different. And this creates division, divide and conquer. You get the point. So naturally, it's a fractured community. We've always stated this. There is no such thing as a community, because everything is infiltrated by the opposition. That's reality. So it's best to do the work that needs to be done, and if others are doing the same, the work will continue to progress. Many may disagree, but it's evident in both cases discussed here. Simply put, when you have something that has become financially motivated, there is no community, only individuals seeking some type of benefit from it. But let's continue.
That is why I'm wondering if he's still around to make content, because he got better as he progressed. Here's what he did. Instead of him letting you know what you saw, knowing the type of content he makes, I seen what he was saying. That's why I don't know if he's around making his content. I haven't seen him in a minute. I'm going to be real with y'all. I looked for him. I seen his channel, but it's been a good 2 months since his last upload. So I don't know what happened.
Mentally exhausted. It was over, done, finished. There was nothing left to expose in that investigation. YouTube didn't terminate the channel, as he mentioned. Chaos was still there. There wasn't any threats. We weren't, quote, silenced. It was flat out mental exhaustion. The individuals who actually investigated that case were mentally exhausted because the majority of it was examining surveillance footage. Hours upon hours, day and night, many people lost a lot of sleep. Staying up, thinking, pondering, questioning, putting pieces together. Many were asleep, waking up in the middle of the night as something came to them, which led to putting more pieces together. It was truly an exhausting case to investigate. And in the final series, we ended with the double-edged sword dynamic. In other words, in either scenario, the family was involved.
Chaos sector. He showed a lot of pictures along with the narrative. They're not going to let you do that because you're literally taking a photo, putting it in front of me, then talking about it in a way that you're not showing yourself. Listen, the most authentic media is this. You show yourself. We don't see who you are. We don't. And if you're doing a review, a reaction, you have to show yourself. But on the other side, we know people that do information, informative. They'll show an image. Oh, did you know elephants? They grow up to this big. They cannot be bigger than this. And that they like to drink water for 5 minutes and they can go 10 weeks. Something like that. You don't have to show yourself. But when you're doing media and you're addressing people a certain way, the narratives you were saying were incredible. I'm like, who is this guy?
He's conflating two things here. An investigator or someone who is investigating, especially a case involving a murder, is not the same as someone commentating on that murder. He is a commentator. That's why he has no concern about revealing his identity to his audience and to the public. Investigators are, literally investigating the murder case you are freely commentating about, identifying yourself with. These are totally two different groups of people. Take anyone dealing with the Idaho murders case. You have people who have no problem showing their faces to the public, right? Now, all of those individuals are commentating on the case, not investigating. Some are somewhat in between, But for the most part, everyone who is publicly revealing their identity in true crime cases are commentators. Because true crime investigators are essentially detectives who present more direct information, theories, evidence that holds a greater impact in regards to seeking the truth. So going back to what he stated about questioning, a commentator may believe in their heart that Dylan was involved, but may present their content in a way that gives her the benefit of the doubt. Why is this? They don't want to make a claim publicly because they aren't doing the investigative work to confidently make that claim publicly. You understand? While an investigator is digging into her accounts, the inconsistencies, the surrounding elements, that prove she at the very least was aware of the murders. And this will be publicly claimed because it's about investigating to get to the truth, where there is no one who is exempt from being focused on. But to summarize, he didn't like the way the chaos presented the theory. It's the chaos sector, you know.
And it's not that I didn't believe you, but there was a certain point I was like, that if what you're saying is true, this is the most insane thing. And I really don't want to go into what he was saying because it got crazy. It went to the point where the way we spoke about the Tentacion thing, I want you to think if I was naming every single person's position, naming what they were going to do, what they wanted to do, what they did, and why they did what they did, and how it had to do with Kenneka Jenkins. Exactly. If every video I was doing that with the Tentacion thing, not only would that get tedious, but there would be people like that. I wasn't doing that. That wasn't me. Even if you say they were. That's why you ask questions. But you were saying, you did this. You did that. You were doing this. It's dangerous. That's why I got mad when people were like, oh, that's you. I was like, I didn't do that. I know why. I'm not going to say it has nothing to do with investigation. I know why they thought it was me. And it was, let's say, for them to think that was Jeans. But no, it wasn't me at all. I don't do media showing the pictures. I don't even interact like that. That was not me. I had a few people, more than enough times, say, Czar, is that you? No, it was not me. I would have did it different. And if I did it, I would have did it in a way that would not be disputable. It would not be disputable. And there's certain ways he could have did it. And I'm not going to go into that because they have the technology I don't have. But I have the understanding of how to deliver it to get to the outcome that they were doing. That's why you saw me on it, then I'm off it, because I seen where it was going. And that was much different than looking into the Tentacion thing. I really mean that. There was a lot going on. And that's all I can say about it to what I understand. And it runs deep. Because again, with it, we got funny style investigations. That's why I let it alone. The investigation, you thought I was talking about this one? That investigation was blatantly funny style. Like to the point where you'd be sitting at the table with the investigators like, so which one of you made this dumb decision? Or which one of you did it on purpose? That's how crazy it was. Like when I actually looked into that, I was like, I'm done. Because of that runs deep. But Chaos Sector, he went at every bit and piece of that. To the point where at the end, I was like, I know, but did you have to say that? Ugh. Like, it was incredible. It was incredible. And shout to him. I hope everything's good. You will probably see him revamp, come back and think. He has to think. Because the way he was doing his media was insane. Watch the other guys, and maybe you'll understand. He might come back, but I don't know. It was kind of heavy. It was heavy.
So, if Nick Too Bad For You is listening, what you heard here was someone wondering where the chaos went after the Kenneka Jenkins case. Now, you may say to yourself, aha, they're pointing out the same thing I am. You're accusing people of murder. Well, you missed the very key point. The content he is referring to was the last series in that investigation titled The Wretched Whole. At that point, there was no holding back in what many were thinking, what many believed, but were afraid to say it. The chaos just went ahead and put it all out there. And you should also know that that final series was after 2 years of investigating that case. So, of course, by then, surely everyone investigating better have some suspects, or you should question if they're actually investigating. No remorse, because on the flip side of his critique, you have to remember a young lady was murdered. And there was a cover-up. Mind you, we pointed out the similarities to both cases. The victim's peers are the center focus, due to the suspicious accounts. Law enforcement covered up the murders, and the families know the truth. Yes, and once again, things get touchy when you mention the family. The same with the Kenneka Jenkins case. Many became nervous when the chaos started addressing the family.
He went at every bit in piece of that. To the point where at the end, I was like, I know, but did you have to say that?
And with the Idaho murders, we have not done that as much. But truth is what we fight for. We'll just leave it at that. In conclusion, if Tracy Walder and Nick Too Bad For You want to shut the chaos down, it only goes to show when the truth starts to come out, the deception is magnified. This is the Chaos Sector.